We have a new big game in town. It is not a looter shooter. It is not an extraction shooter, no battle royale. It's not an RPG. Well, it's kind of an RPG. It's the Walter White simulator, if you will. It's similar to Dealer Simulator, where this is Schedule 1. Now, this game, if you look at the Steam charts, it's the number 4 game on Steam right now. It's an indie game. Out of all of the games on here, it is the only indie game. It's currently sitting at 171,000 players. It's like 8 a.m. for me right now, meaning later today, it's going to be over 200,000 players, at least. The game is absolutely huge, but there's a lot of controversy around it. One, because of the subject material, but I think that's not so much the reason. And that is what Legendary Drops is covering in this video. He titled the video, Schedule 1 is a Problem. And 26 minutes of this, let's figure out exactly why it's a problem. Grab a snack, I've got a coffee, and let's have a listen.
Have you guys noticed how increasingly more common it's becoming for some of these indie games to come out of left field and just absolutely decimate?
There's been a lot over the last, I think I said it last year, that indie games were outselling AAA games very, very frequently. And once again,
talking player numbers and sales that are embarrassing AAA games. Games made by one guy beating teams of 1,000 developers, tens of thousands if we're going to count Ubisoft in this conversation. Well,
I want to look something up because I don't know the answer. Give me 1 second.
Schedule 1 is a game about friendship. It's about making connections. It's about starting from the bottom and working your way up. It's a game about drugs. Which makes it all the more ironic for how addicting the game is to play. But I'm seeing this game all over the place. It's on Twitter, it's on Reddit, it's on YouTube, it's on Twitch. My buddy who just got his first gaming PC opens up Steam for the first time, and it's the first game that he buys.
That's wild.
Games like Schedule 1 are becoming a problem.
Okay, so in Canada, the reason why I pulled up Steam there is I was looking up the price because I didn't know it offhand. Schedule 1 is $25.99 in Canada, so probably about 20 USD. And that's one of the reasons why they sell so many, is because it's cheaper. It's less of a commitment. You can just hop in, hop out. It's not like a AAA game where you're going to spend $70, $80 and have to be in there for like 60 hours. And there's like a lot of games that I want to play right now. The other one is Blueprints. It's a puzzle game. But that one comes in at $35 Canadian, so probably like 30 USD around there. But I will say this. I have not played Schedule 1 yet. If you guys want me to play Schedule 1, I will stream it and do a video. So I played Schedule 1 on the channel. Hit the like button on this video. Let's say if this video hits 250 likes. We won't go crazy. No, 300. We'll make it as even 300. I will do the live stream of it, and I will do a video of me playing the game. So if you want to see that, hit the like button. Anyway.
These games are beating out games that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to make their games. They're doing it without any marketing. And worst of all, they're cutting out the middleman.
Publishers.
You can't have that. Because once you start doing those kind of things, when you have that kind of freedom to create and you're reaching that kind of success, you're going to start to attract some unwanted attention. And that's exactly where Schedule 1 is today. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about the insane success of Schedule 1, my experience playing it, and why an industry that's ran by investors can't let games like this exist. Schedule 1 released 2 weeks ago, and within days, it had already climbed the Steam charts. As of recording this video, it is #1 top seller on Steam. It is #4 for concurrent players, and it recently hit a peak of over 450,000 concurrent players, and now averaging 340,000 concurrent players per day.
So this is one of those things, right? Like I said, it's sitting at 171,000 right now at 8 a.m. I'm curious what it peaks at today, but obviously it's not going to retain those numbers.
Outperforming Path of Exile, which just released new content, edging out Monster Hunter Wilds after its first title update, and it's completely humiliating the quadruple A spectacle that is Assassin's Creed Shadows. Schedule 1 is another entry in what is becoming an increasingly common trend: indie developers releasing games with little to no marketing and watching them explode across the internet. Think Undertale, Stardew Valley, Vampire Survivors, Valheim, Palworld, Balatro. Games made by a single developer or a tiny team delivering exactly what players have been missing and absolutely dominating the charts. The game was developed by Tyler, an independent developer out of Sydney, Australia, working under the name
Tyler. It's developed by Tyler.
Tyler's video game studio. I laugh every single time I read that.
Funny.
Tyler handled nearly every aspect of the game himself, designing the game, programming it, systems, and the art, but he had some help with collaborators like K. Sewell, who's the one that composed the game's catchy soundtrack. Seriously, I've been jamming that music in the background while I've been writing now. And Cody, too, who created some of the game's graffiti. Now, despite its niche, the game has resonated with an enormous audience, and I think part of that has to do with the genre. Schedule 1, at its core, is just a crafting sim. You start with nothing and you work your way up through progressively more complex crafting systems, increasing your wealth, unlocking more neighborhoods, and expanding your influence. It's a familiar loop, or one that I've definitely hooked myself on quite a lot with games like Terraria, Valheim, Enshrouded, or Minecraft, but Schedule 1's twist is the plot. You're essentially a small-time dealer growing your own product, refining it, selling it, and building out a crew to be able to help you scale out. I've personally sunk over 50 hours into the game now, and I've nearly unlocked everything short of the final neighborhood. And I'm completely sold. I keep playing the game every chance that I get. I love games like this, open-ended crafting sims where you get to define the pace yourself, experiment with systems, and you get to feel like your time that you're investing into the game directly translates to actual growth within that game. You can be methodical, you can squeeze every little bit of value out of all of your resources, or you can brute force your way through, scaling up as fast as possible. Hell, you can even automate the entire process, so the game basically just plays itself. It's up to you. Don't laugh at me for getting technical, but what I think makes this game really special is how seamlessly it transitions between its two core gameplay loops, production and social progression. The first loop, growing and crafting, is simple at first. Plant a seed, water it, harvest the flower, but over time you start to get...
Does that say horse semen? That says horse semen. Okay.
Access to additives, fertilizers, environmental controls, and scalable infrastructure. Every plant then has its own unique traits, cost, potency, NPC demand. Then comes in the mixing system where you can start to enhance products with different effects, like making NPCs shoot out lightning, walk around on clouds, or turn them into aliens or zombies. It's ridiculous, but it serves a purpose to increase the product's price and its appeal to your customers. I found myself lost here for hours experimenting with different mixtures and different orders of those mixtures and different effects that they could have, and now I have an 8-buff recipe, completely automated, and it's listing the product for over $1,000. That feels good. Which then that brings me to the game's second loop, networking, and as your operation grows, you start to target different specific NPCs based on their preferences. You start to build rapport, earn trust, unlock new customers, recruit new crew members, and eventually get access to new suppliers. They're going to boost your overall operation. It's a system that blends an emergent strategy with good old-fashioned trial and error, and it's surprisingly deep. Look, I'll be honest with you guys, I completely assumed that this game's popularity was mostly due to its shock value. It's not every day that you see a game
about... That's 100% correct, right? Let's be honest. Like, let's call a spade a spade. The game is popular because of its material, like what it's about. That's what gets people into it. The fact that they took that and then made something good out of it is why the player numbers have stayed there. Because if it was just shock value, people would play it for 3 hours, throw it aside, and that's that. But now it's like, even time played, one of the biggest games on Steam.
Selling powder and flour to cartoon NPCs become a top seller, but the longer I played, the more I realized how satisfying all of its core systems really are. It's not just the subject matter, it's how involved you are in the process. And honestly, I think that's something that a lot of modern games have largely forgotten. In a lot of ways, the game actually reminds me of all the things that I really loved about Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is a crazy comparison to make when you think about it. But when you're crafting a potion in that game, you're picking the herbs, you're grinding them manually, you're boiling them, you're maximizing your yield based on real input, you're smithing swords with a hammer and timing it perfectly, you're controlling the temperature, you're properly sharpening weapons. This game makes you feel like you're doing that sort of work. Schedule 1, despite its goofy presentation, accomplishes something very similar here. You're adding ingredients, you're testing combinations, you're watching the effects, packaging your own product, and you're hitting the streets to make sales. The feedback loop is immediate and immersive, and it's not about watching a progress bar, it's about feeling like you're actually earning something by doing it. And it never loses its charm. The art style is crude in a deliberate way, full of absurd and surreal-looking NPCs with exaggerated animations. You're hiding in dumpsters. The game's fastest vehicle is a golden skateboard, and you're brewing concoctions that warp the laws of nature itself. But underneath all of that madness is a tight, responsive, and deeply satisfying gameplay loop. You're laughing 1 minute, and you're planning your expansion strategy the next. I love that every system feeds into one another. Want to automate your production? Well, you're going to need to build out, buy some infrastructure, and hire some employees.
The more I watch this, the more I think I might actually like this game.
to scale up quickly? Well, you're going to need to build rep with your suppliers to be able to make more product. Want to maximize your profit? Well, you're going to need to mix with precision and cater to customer demand. Yet at the exact same time, you can ignore all of that if you want. But if you want to dive in, you're rewarded for it. There's a surprising amount of freedom in how you approach everything. You can have your crew pushing your product while you're the one that's focusing on crafting. You can work solo and micromanage every step. You can run your...
Want to hear some? He might talk about this later on, but like fantasy world. Let's say Ubisoft released this game. Of course, they wouldn't. Would people have the same response and say, "Oh, it's charming, it's goofy, it's fun," or would they be like, "This is a AAA developer and this does not go up to snuff"? I'm very curious because optics-wise, one of the reasons why it's doing so well is because it's a single developer. They're like, okay, it can be a little clunky because one guy made it. Ubisoft releases it. First of all, be shocked, but then second of all, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Empire in real time during the day and then focus on restocking and production at night. The game never really forces you into one particular play style, but everything feels intuitive enough that you always feel like you're making some sort of progress. I think what Schedule 1 proves, yet again in this case, especially when it comes to these indie games, is that the gap between indie and AAA has never been wider. I mean, I never take the time to analyze or even notice these kind of things if they even exist in AAA games. Their games are so bloated, overproduced, obsessed with cutscenes and cinematic presentation, often to the detriment of the actual experience. Schedule 1 is the opposite, and I love games like this. So do the players. That's obvious enough. It's lean, it's focused, it's gameplay first, and it works because it never...
But that's the thing, right? Ubisoft releases, it's not deep enough. It's a whole other set of complaints.
Forgets what players are actually here for, to play. Schedule 1 only costs $20. It delivers potentially hundreds of hours of content, strong systems, tons of replay value, and a surprising amount of multiplayer depth. It didn't need a cinematic trailer. It didn't need a live action ad campaign. It didn't need pre-order bonuses or influencer hype. It just needed to be good, and that was enough. This is going to sound ridiculous. I'm trying to think of the best way to be able to explain it. The graffiti on the wall is oddly relatable. Makes me feel like one of my friends could have made this game. And I think that has something to do with the game's popularity. Because the inside jokes, the naming of the different products that you can put into stuff, the naming of the product that comes out in the end. I got the whole block hooked on Gorilla Smegma.
Gorilla Smegma?
Fucking hilarious, dude. And that's endearing. You want to see that. You see yourself in the game, and you feel like you can relate to the person who made it. I don't feel that way with a lot of games, and I haven't for a long time. And I think that's an incredibly important connection to be able to make. It's one of the intangibles of game design, where you feel like your humor, imagination, your interests are shared by the people that made it. You feel vindicated in that. Like you have something in common.
Okay.
And it's called being in touch with your audience. And I think just about anybody can say that this industry has been way out of touch with its audience.
Okay, I think this is going too far, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think that this is Tyler, specifically we know his name's Tyler, is probably a funny dude, right? He has a sense of humor that a lot of other people have, and he made a game based off of that. I don't know if we can say that's being in touch with his audience. You could say that maybe he's charismatic or he has a good sense of humor, but like it's not like he got out in the streets and was like, you know what? Everyone needs this game. No, it's like, this is funny, let's make it, and then it blew up. I think it's more what it's like. I think it's overanalyzing.
I've played a lot of games since starting this channel, and at this point, I'm starting to feel like these game developers live in an alternate universe. Nothing feels relatable to me. Everything has to be a tangent to what's going on in the real world. Everything has to have a deeper message. Not everything needs to be like that. It's just not necessary. $20. Another $20 game goes on to sell millions of copies, making a solo developer a millionaire overnight. You know, when this game released and it immediately started to find some popularity, the developer went and put the game on sale. Who does that? Somebody that wants to make money.
Baller. Tyler is a baller.
Somebody that knows what you need to do. Make a fun game. Make it fairly priced. People buy it. Crazy concept, I know. This isn't rocket science. How many times have I seen these developers that are basically trying to learn astrology to figure out what players want? Maybe if we read their horoscopes. Then you have a game that makes it where you can put horse glaze and chili powder into something to set somebody's hair on fire and give them a long face. Monkey brain like. Me like game. Me give money. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. But that scares these C-suite executives because they don't understand the popularity, the virality, the relatability of these games because they can't reproduce it. They can't.
This is exactly what I'm saying. They can't reproduce it because it's that charm of a solo developer. As soon as you have a big name backing it, like if you were like, this is made by Tyler's Game Company, released by EA, it's all of a sudden like, okay, well, this is no longer a same thing.
Crack the code on this kind of thing. And because of that, their only answer is to suppress it. It's actually kind of insane how often we're seeing some of these viral indie hits run straight into some form of cold corporate or bureaucratic resistance, whether it's from platform policies, rating boards, legal ambiguity, or flat out attempts to suppress or discredit them. There is a growing pattern here. A developer releases something fresh and unexpected, it takes off, and suddenly they're in the crosshairs, not because they did anything wrong, but because they succeeded outside of the system. When you take a moment to look at the legal and bureaucratic minefield that these indie developers have to tiptoe around just to be able to release a game, it's genuinely surprising that we ever see anything original at all. The modern gaming landscape isn't built to encourage creativity, it's structured to protect existing power, intellectual property, and investor interests. In some ways, the system is designed to suffocate innovation unless it's coming from an approved source. I mean, Balatro got slammed by ratings boards for supposedly promoting gambling just because it used poker hands in a scoring.
I don't think that's one because they were trying to suppress the game. I truly believe that just the Australians' rating board is just messed.
System, despite no real gambling mechanics.
I don't think there's any
in
like
the game
other
whatsoever. Pal World came under fire for copying Pokemon, even though the gameplay is wildly different because Nintendo's patent net is so wide that even breathing now seems like it's lawsuit worthy.
Being messed up.
While in litigation with Pocket Pair, Nintendo is still trying to file new patents to retroactively catch them on. It's reaching a point where making a game that even feels familiar or is using visual shorthand that players understand can get you pulled from storefronts and buried in lawsuits. Now we have Schedule 1 going through the same mess, originally reported on by Andrew Heighton of Insider Gaming in an article titled Schedule 1 being investigated for IP copyright infringement claims. They write, evidence on the investigation surfaced on a website, Pab Business, featuring a document entitled Movie Games SA 17-2025 Decision to Commence Investigation Against the Creators of Schedule 1 Production for claims regarding the infringement of the issuer's IP and related to committing an act of unfair competition against it. Movie Games SA has its own series of drug dealing games, Drug Dealer Simulator 1 and Drug Dealer Simulator 2. While the name is more overt than its goal, both titles have attracted thousands of players respectively. The legal document mentions potential infringement of the issuer's intellectual property rights and activities that bear characteristics of
Here's my question. The Movie Games SA, how big is that studio? Is it one that's backed by a publisher or is it an indie developer as well? Because if it's an indie developer as well, the whole point of this video that Legendary Drops is making doesn't really make any sense. But if they're like a big developer that's backed by like EA or something dumb like that, then this is a solid point. But like if they're both indie developers, then it's just like, okay, well, they feel like they stole their stuff. It doesn't go with like the Nintendo's Pal World or anything like that.
Unfair competition have been identified. Ergo, Schedule 1 is too similar to the Drug Dealer Simulator series. Proceedings began as soon as Schedule 1 released on March 24th and featured a comparative analysis of the IP, which includes Drug Dealer Simulator and Drug Dealer Simulator 2 and the Schedule 1 project. The investigation is strongly looking into elements of the game's plot, mechanics, as well as UI user interface. It finishes by saying, the issuer will immediately inform about further actions related to the pursuit of claims regarding the infringement of the issuer's IP and the act of unfair competition in subsequent current reports. Yeah, I'm gonna take a wild guess here and say the unfair competition they're referring to is the part where Drug Dealer Simulator 1 and 2 combined couldn't even crack 20,000 players, while Schedule 1 is one of the most talked about and played games on Steam right now.
Is that true?
At least with Nintendo and Pal World, unfair competition they're referring to is the part where Drug Dealer Simulator 1 and...
Oh shit, I thought they were way more popular than that. Huh.
2 combined couldn't even crack 20,000 players, while Schedule 1 is one of the most talked about and played games on Steam right now. At least with Nintendo and Pal World, you could kind of see where that lawsuit was coming from. The creature designs, the ball throwing mechanics, they were all surface level elements that were echoing Pokemon. Even with Temtem, they got out of the way of Nintendo by making sure they were using cards instead of balls. But so
they are publicly traded? Yeah, they have a stock price. So their headquarters is in Poland. It doesn't say who their distributor is, but yeah, they They're bigger than I thought. So yeah, okay, this
Investigation
makes
against
more
Schedule
sense.
1 feels completely out of pocket. It's not just a stretch, it's embarrassing that they're even trying. I've taken the time to check it out, and Schedule 1 doesn't really share anything structurally significant with their games whatsoever. The crafting, the progression loops, the interface, the tone, it's all completely different. To be honest, Ubisoft has a stronger claim against them ripping off a Far Cry than they do against Schedule 1. In their games, you start off as a low-level pusher working for somebody else, then slowly build out your own operation. It leans way harder into weighing product, micromanaging dead drops, dodging rival gangs, and ferrying shipments across different islands. It's less of a game and more of a chore simulator. Sure, they both have similar themes, but if having drugs as your premise is going to be the trigger for legal action, by that logic, are they going to go after Breaking Bad next? After news of the investigation broke, media outlets jumped the gun and ran with headlines saying that Schedule 1 was facing an active lawsuit. The internet then did what it does best. Players flooded Drug Dealer Simulator 1 and 2 with negative reviews, dragging the game into a storm that they weren't ready for. In response to this, the developers posted a statement on Steam clarifying the situation. To paraphrase a little bit, they're saying that there is no lawsuit.
So where did this come from then?
They're not trying to shut down Schedule 1, and the investigation was only launched after repeated comparisons between the two games raised concerns. Since Movie Games SA is a publicly traded company, they claim that they are legally obligated to investigate potential infringement.
Okay. That's probably true, but again, this is what I was saying about publicly traded company.
And disclose it through proper stock market channels, ESPI. The media then picked it up from there, and the story spiraled out of control. They also then clarified, saying that the developer of Drug Dealer Simulator, Byte Runners, isn't involved at all. It's strictly a publisher-level decision. The post then closes with them insisting that there is no bad blood and that they even sent Schedule 1's developer best wishes before the game blew up. But whether it's legal obligation or damage control, it's clear that this isn't the kind of attention that they were expecting. And this is where things get really weird for me, because there was a second response, and this time it was from the actual developers at Byte Runners, where I think the first response was actually written by their publisher, and it's kind of a plot twist. In a statement that they posted on Twitter, Rafal, the CEO and developer of the Drug Dealer Simulator series, basically said, "We had no idea that this was happening." According to him, the development team wasn't informed of the investigation at all, and they only found out when the story blew up online, claiming that they were just as blindsided as everyone else. He writes, "In light of the recent Movie Games versus Schedule 1 legal investigation controversy, I would like to state that we, Byte Runners, the development studio behind Drug Dealer Simulator series, do not have any ill intentions towards neither Schedule 1, TVGS, or..."
So they're saying, Byte Runners is saying that they had no idea about this, and then their Movie Games SA, the publisher, is saying that it was their idea. So they're throwing each other
or
under the bus.
game community. Actions taken by our publisher, Movie Games SA, are a part of an internal policy and business interest, which we have no influence over.
Yeah, so they're both
we were not
blaming each
informed
other.
of their plans, and were also surprised by this course of action. We are currently in talks with Movie Games on this matter. For now, we do not want to publicly neither condone nor approve of the actions before these talks have come to any conclusions. I think basically this dude is saying, we don't know if it's good or bad for us yet, so we need to wait to figure it out. We would like to ask everyone on both DDS and Schedule 1 communities to be patient and not spread unnecessary negativity or misinformation. We congratulate the success of Schedule 1 to TVGS and would like every gamer to enjoy and support any game they choose. Our main focus as the dev team is improving the DDS IP, which also includes learning on the Schedule 1 massive success and its and our community feedback on it.
So in other words, they're making a third one, and they're going to copy Schedule 1.
All we ask for now is your understanding. The tone here couldn't be any more different from the original Steam post, where the publisher had framed the investigation as a necessary legal procedure. The developer comes off as almost embarrassed by the entire thing. Then they go out of their way to distance themselves from the publisher's actions, saying that they don't condone or approve of anything yet? Yeah. What does that even mean? And now they're just waiting for internal talks? I'm just going to go with my gut here and say they didn't expect the backlash to be this bad. There is no chance, there is no way that you are going to convince me that your publisher, without any communication, suddenly launched a legal investigation on your behalf using your game as a basis without you knowing anything about it. That is not how legal prep works. To even begin an investigation like this, you need access to build files, source assets, system documentation, something from the development team to be able to make...
It needs to like quite literally show that you have stolen code or stolen some sort of thing. Like if you like just take something super simple like GTA and Saints Row. There was never any lawsuits between the two, even though they're like, you could look at a ton of similarities. The art's different, the world's different. Like, you're not stealing like the city, you're not stealing the layout, you're not stealing the code. You're maybe stealing an idea, but like,
make the comparisons
I
necessary
don't think you can really like copyright, like, you guess you can with patents, but it's very different.
for a legitimate IP case. So either you were involved and now you're walking it back, or your publisher went rogue and dragged you into a legal case without any warning and snuck into your office and stole the files. Neither one of those look very good. And even if for whatever reason Byte Runners wasn't involved in this decision, I'm sorry, this is what comes with the territory when you sign up with a publisher. Tyler didn't. He developed and published Schedule 1 himself. Every decision he makes, every success or controversy, it's all on him. But once you hand over the reins to a publisher, you are
Tyler is good guy Tyler. We all know
also
this.
signing up for all of their baggage, the legal departments, the investor meetings, the risk management, the corporate damage control. You don't get to opt out when it gets uncomfortable. And the claim that the investigation was already in motion before the game took off, total bullshit. The investigation was formally initiated on April 3rd. Schedule 1 launched on March 24th. And by the 30th, it had already hit over 400,000 concurrent players. This wasn't some long-planned legal strategy. Otherwise, why would you guys have sent them a congratulations email? It was a knee-jerk response to getting blown out of the water. I don't know about you guys, but from where I'm sitting, this looks like a textbook case of a publisher, and more likely their board of directors and shareholders, panicking over the fact that the game that they backed didn't deliver, while a solo developer just ate their lunch in broad daylight. So now they're trying to claw back some relevance and revenue through legal pressure instead of actually trying to make games that people want to play. It's all retaliatory. It's all bitter, and it reeks of a system that sees creativity as not something to nurture, but something to control. Now, I actually posted this in a response on Twitter to the Byte Runner CEO's letter to the players, but I basically said, yeah, this must suck to be completely powerless in this situation, but this is exactly what you signed up for. And honestly, the more that I think about it, this probably explains why so many of these self-published indie games are blowing up, while these smaller studios tied to these tiny publishers are scraping by. Creative freedom, no bureaucracy, no boardroom full of guys in suits that are second-guessing your every move, just a developer and an idea. And honestly, that's...
And we've talked about this so many times with specifically Call of Duty, but other big game studios as well. When you have like, okay, these are the guys that come up with the ideas. We got the writers, and then we have the developers. They work well together. But then whenever we decide to change something, we got to get it approved through the higher ups. We got to get it approved through legal. And then when you get bigger, even for your patch notes, you have to send your patch notes off to the director. Then you have the director has to send them off to legal. Legal has to approve them, send them back to the director. The director has to approve them and send them back to the team. And then the community managers can then put that post out. It's not just a clickety click, clickety clack, put up a community post, boom, done. You can't get anything done anymore.
Probably the conversation that we really need to be having here, because this isn't just about one game or one legal spat. There needs to be a bigger push towards independence in video game development. Too many of these publishers aren't interested in creating anything. They don't build worlds. They don't design mechanics. They don't tell stories. What they do is manage. And in that management, they influence the industry more than they contribute to it. Their primary goal isn't to support creativity. It's to control outcomes. They want to shape trends, shape players, shape spending habits. And when they fund something, that comes with strings attached, strings that always pull in the direction of risk aversion or maximizing profits. Sure, publishers offer funding and infrastructure. They offer visibility, marketing pipelines, access to networks, but it comes at the cost of freedom, of voice, of innovation. How many times have we heard stories about developers that were pressured into adding in microtransactions that they didn't want to put into their game? Or how many times have we heard about games that were forced to pivot towards live service even when that didn't fit their vision? These decisions rarely come from the development team themselves. They come from people upstairs, people staring at spreadsheets, not playtests, people who see creativity as a variable that needs to be managed, not a driving force. From my perspective, in many ways, publishers have become the industrialists of this medium. They're more concerned with scalability and litigation than actually making games themselves. They commodify everything about the creative process. They strip out the rough edges, the weird ideas, the risk, and replace them with something that fits into their monetization model of the moment. And then they sit back wondering why none of these games are resonating, why they're failing to meet their sales targets. It's not the players that are the problem. It's not the developers that are the problem. It's the layer that's in between, the suits that are trying to systemize everything that's not meant to be a system in the first place. And the more games that we see, like Schedule 1, that are succeeding without them, the more obvious that becomes. You know, I think a lot of these publishers and executives that are running these companies are the biggest barrier to creativity and success for the vast majority of these developers. They don't outright build anything themselves. They just go out of their way to try to control it or squash it if it threatens their margins in any way. And that sucks. Not just for us, the players, but also for the people that are making these games. I mean, like, patent laws in general in the video game ecosystem just don't make any sense whatsoever.
I mean, you patent laws don't make any sense in most situations whatsoever, unless you're like literally going in and like talking about the way something is manufactured. Okay, patent laws start to make sense. But if you're like quite literally talking about like creative, unless you are directly stealing a character, like, oh, this is Nathan Drake, and okay, well, this one is Nathan Drake, and he does the exact same thing as the other character, then okay, like we get that. But like, just like having ideas and then doing something based off of that, it just doesn't really work. You got to make the best version of that thing, and then no one's going to be able to take it because you already have the best version of that thing.
All these layers of red tape for something that just shouldn't be there in the first place. Even if a developer isn't trying to copy something, they're just going to ignore it or try not to be anything like it just out of the implicit threat that comes from legal action. They just stay away from it. That's why we sit back and wonder why we haven't seen a game like this again, or that, or whatever it might be. You know, in theory, publishers are supposed to be there to be able to make things easier for developers. They're supposed to be able to take care of all the noise, and then developers just focus on doing what they do best, making video games, and that's about it. But the minute that you start handing over all of that power, all of a sudden you find out that you don't really get to make a whole lot of decisions on your own anymore. And that's what's happened to some of these people. When you get in bed with these guys, this is the end result of that. They go out and attack your competition. How does that feel? I can't imagine that feels very good. These guys are creatives. They want to make games. They want other people to be inspired by their work and make games of their own. And now you have to sit back and watch what happens. I'm sorry, man, but you're not innocent in that. And, you know, we feel the effects of it too, without a doubt. We still get some great games, but at the exact same time, I mean, I've had a really weird feeling that things have just kind of felt samey for a really long time. Very samey.
With AAA games, 100%. But like even more so, like if you look at specific publishers, like look how similar all the Ubisoft games feel, or even EA games with their microtransactions, right? Like it's just all of the publishers put out all of the same things in different genres, and they all feel exact. I completely agree with
samey,
that.
Very safe in a lot of cases. And I think that comes from the fact that, you know, if any game tries to make a game like Pokemon, they're going to get scared away, or they're going to get sued into oblivion.
Cease and desist.
So many mechanics. I mean, look at the way that Nintendo has litigated and patented just about everything. Sony's been doing the same thing.
Activision does it. Look at H2M when that mod came out.
WB Games and the Nemesis system. Something that would revolutionize
that's
RPGs,
a better example.
And we'll never see it. Ever. There's such a poison to this industry. It's insane. And you look around and notice almost every single one of these breakout hits have always been self-published. And in some cases where these developers did go through a publisher, the only reason they did that was to be able to protect their identity. There needs to be more options for that. That needs to be nurtured and taken care of. There needs to be more developers that are making games themselves, publishing games themselves, and there needs to be an easier way for these guys to get onto platforms without the need of a publisher. There's already ways for them. You don't even need publishers anymore. Sure, for like legal and patent and stuff like that, hire a lawyer, man. Why are you handing away all of your profit, all of your control to a bunch of people that don't want to have anything to do with the creative process?
Well, there is an actual reason. I don't know why he's glancing over this, but it's money. If it's very expensive to fund a development of a game for a few years, and the bigger your game gets, the more people you need working on it. So yeah, when you're a solo developer, there's no reason for a publisher. But if you have 50 people working on it, that's a lot of salary that you have to give out for multiple years. And then if the game flops, you're screwed, right? But if you have a publisher, they give you that money. Like that's the actual reason for having a publisher. Like let's be clear.
Process whatsoever. It just doesn't make any sense. You can promote your games online with
Yeah, he's missing
no
a big part
problem.
here.
Balatro had next to no marketing whatsoever. Schedule 1 had next to no marketing whatsoever. Valheim had no marketing whatsoever. There's so many more examples that I could give of games that never had an ad or a commercial or anything like that. They were just on Steam.
And I'm wondering, like you look at like this game, you look at Stardew Valley, you look at these games that blew up one developer, right? You can fund one person to make a game quite easily, but as soon as it's like even 2 people, 5 people's a lot. You want to pay them a good salary? At least in Canada, 6 figures is like, we'll say $60,000. 5 people, that's over $250,000 for a year. Where are you getting that from? A publisher. That is the hard part. That's actually the hard part.
People played it. People liked it. Spread by word of mouth. Fair price, good game. People go buy it. As far as it needs to go. That's what needs to happen. We need more of it. And I want that to be a big focus. I think Steam is the leader in that. Steam's definitely the one that's been pushing and helping a lot of these indie developers be able to find their legs in the industry. And I appreciate that. I think everybody does. There's a lot of games that we would have never had if it wasn't for Steam. So, thank God for Gavin. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video.
I mean, it's an interesting thought. I think a little bit of it is slightly disingenuous, right? Like we look at this and like the real reason behind all of this is money, like behind all of it, right? Like to make big games, you need big money. To get big money, you need investors. So that's where the investor part of it comes in. But then you don't get the money back, or you make a crappy game, or you play it too safe, and you end up in the position that they are now. And then the investors need to be protected. So then you sue them patents, right? Then they're like, oh, I should have invested in this company if the patent isn't there. Also, I think it's like Activision had like 1,000 patents. It was a big number, maybe 100, maybe 1,000 patents. That's part of the reason why Xbox bought them. Some of those patents include certain things with skill-based matchmaking. Now that they have those patents, they can sell them to other companies or use them for their other businesses, like other games, like Halo. We've talked about this before, how it looks like Halo is using Activision's SBMM algorithm now. Whole other conversation. But like it's just the way the industry works. So he's right there. But also, it's what we do, right? We want these big games, which means they need this big money, which means they need this big studio, which means the publishers make the decisions. So yeah, we're just as big of a part of the problem as everything else that he just described. That's what I think, at least.